The forest was silent, but it was not the silence of peace, it was the silence of waiting, of something hidden, something watching. The moonlight slipped through the trees, making silver lines on the ground. The air was cold, and every breath came out like a pale mist. Ethan moved slowly, careful not to make noise, his boots pressed on the wet leaves, his eyes scanning the shadows. He was a hunter, not a soldier, not a hero, just a man who had lived in these woods for years. He knew the sound of every bird, every branch, every creature. But tonight, something was wrong. He had set the traps earlier that evening, the kind used for wild animals, strong enough to hold a deer, silent enough to wait for hours. Yet as the night stretched longer, strange noises began to disturb the forest. Not the sound of owls, not the rustle of rabbits, but heavy steps, and echoes like whispers carried by the wind. Ethan paused, heart beating faster. He told himself it was only his imagination, but deep inside, he knew something different was out there. A branch snapped, loud and sharp. Ethan froze. He held, his breath waiting, listening, his hand tightened on the wooden handle of his lantern. Then nothing. Only silence again, as if the forest itself had stopped breathing. He shook his head, muttered to himself, "It's just the night playing tricks." But his voice sounded too small against the vast darkness. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time felt slow, heavy, like the world was holding back some secret. Then, suddenly it happened. A sharp metallic snap cut through the silence. One of the traps had been triggered. Ethan's eyes widened. Adrenaline rushed into his veins. He grabbed his lantern tighter and moved quickly toward the sound. His boots sank into the damp soil, each step louder than he wanted, each step pushing him closer to the unknown. He reached the trap, and what he saw made him stop. It was no animal, no deer, no fox, nothing he had ever seen before. Inside the trap struggled a figure, tall, slim but glowing faintly as if light itself lived under the skin. The face was almost human, but the eyes were large, shining like liquid silver filled with fear. Her hair shimmered as though it was made of strands of starlight. Her clothes were not of earth. Thin metallic threads wrapped her like armor. Ethan's breath caught. He stepped back, his mind racing. He wanted to believe it was a dream, a trick of the night, but the sight before him was real. The figure, the woman, looked at him with terror. She pulled at the trap, wincing in pain. A soft sound escaped her lips, not in English, not in any language he knew, but he understood the meaning. It was fear. Her voice trembled, her eyes begged for freedom, yet she pulled away from him, certain he would harm her. Ethan raised his lantern higher. The glow of fire met the glow of her skin, creating a strange mix of human and alien light. He whispered almost to himself, "What are you?" The alien woman flinched, her body tensed, her breathing quick. She thought his whisper was a threat. Her fear grew stronger. Ethan took a step forward, then stopped. He did not want to scare her, but curiosity burned inside him. The forest around them seemed to close in, every tree leaning closer, every shadow pressing deeper. The silence was broken only by her rapid breaths and the faint hum coming from her glowing skin. Like energy flowing beneath the surface, Ethan realized she was hurt. The trap had caught her ankle, though the metal seemed to bend strangely as if resisting her power. She tried to pull free again, but pain made her cry out. A sound so soft yet so sharp it went straight to Ethan's chest. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt something he could not explain. Not just fear, not just wonder, but responsibility. This was not a wild animal, not something to kill. It was someone lost, someone afraid. His instincts warred. Inside him, run away, call someone, or stay. He chose to stay. He slowly crouched down, keeping his lantern low, his voice calm. "I won't hurt you," he said. The words simple, gentle. The alien woman's silver eyes narrowed. She shook her head. Her lips moved, but her words were not human. Still, he could feel the meaning. She did not believe him. Ethan reached a hand toward the trap, not touching her. Just the metal. He wanted her to see, to understand. She pulled back sharply, her entire body trembling, her fear filling the air like electricity. Ethan stayed still, his hand open, his eyes steady. No sudden moves, only patience. "Listen," he whispered. "I don't know what you are, but I know pain when I see it. Let me help." The words floated into the night, gentle, uncertain but honest. The alien woman blinked, her breath slowed just a little, her silver eyes locked on his face, searching. Seconds felt like hours. The forest waited. Even the wind seemed to hold back. And in that moment, both hunter and stranger stood on the edge of something neither could understand. The trap, the fear, the forest. All of it was only the beginning. Something greater was waiting. Beyond the trees, beyond the stars, and Ethan had no idea his life was about to change forever. The night pressed heavy on the forest, the air thick with secrets. Ethan stood over the strange figure, his breath uneven, his mind refusing to believe. Yet his eyes could not deny. The woman was not human. Her silver eyes glowed faintly. Her skin shimmered like moonlight caught in water, and the trap held her ankle tight, cold iron against something not of this earth. She pulled hard again, the sharp metal dug deeper. A sound escaped her lips, not like any language he had heard. It was high, broken, trembling. It was fear made into voice. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to free her, yet he also wanted answers. What was she? Where had she come from? Why here? Why tonight? The lantern shook slightly in his hand, its warm flame clashing with her cold glow, two lights battling in the darkness. The alien woman's gaze never left him. She thought he was a predator, a hunter, a killer. Her body tense, her breath fast. As if she waited for the strike, Ethan whispered again, soft and low, "I won't hurt you." But the words sounded weak, fragile, powerless against her terror. She answered in her own tongue, the sound quick, sharp, her voice rising, though he could not understand. He felt the meaning. She was begging, she was warning, she was telling him to stay away. Ethan shook his head. He lowered the lantern to the ground, letting the soft fire rest between them, his hands empty, open. "See? No weapon? No harm," he said, his voice calm. The alien woman's silver eyes darted between his hands and his face, suspicion heavy in her gaze. She tried to pull back again, but the trap clanged and pain made her gasp. That sound pierced Ethan more than any blade could. It was not the sound of an enemy. It was the sound of someone helpless. He moved slowly, crouching near the trap, his fingers just above the metal. "Let me help," he whispered. She flinched, pulling her ankle tighter against the trap. Even though it hurt her more, she believed his touch meant harm, not help. Her glow flickered like light dimming under storm clouds. Ethan realized she was weakening, maybe from fear, maybe from the trap, maybe from something greater. He looked into her eyes again, and for a brief moment, he saw something beyond fear, a shadow of loneliness, a weight heavier than chains. Ethan's thoughts raced. Questions collided in his head. Was she alone? Was she lost? Or was she being hunted? The forest seemed to answer. Distant hums echoed through the night, faint but steady, like engines hidden above the clouds. The alien woman's eyes widened at the sound. Terror replaced suspicion. She whispered quickly, urgently, her words sharp, desperate. Though Ethan did not understand the language, he understood the meaning. Others were coming. Others were searching for her, and they were close. Ethan felt the ground shift under his feet, not from movement but from realization. This was not just a strange encounter, not just a mystery. It was danger, real and near. He looked back at her, saw the fear that was no longer about him but about what was out there. She thought he would hurt her, yet now she feared something worse. Ethan pressed his hand to the trap, testing the metal. Strong, rusty, old, but not unbreakable. He glanced at her face, his voice steady. "If I free you, will you trust me?" he asked. Her eyes narrowed. Her glow dimmed. She hesitated, then shook her head, slow and hopeless. She did not trust him. Maybe she could not trust anyone. Yet her silence was also an answer. It told him that trust did not matter anymore. Time was running out. The hum in the sky grew louder. Faint lights flickered between the clouds. Ethan knew planes, he knew helicopters, but this was neither. The forest animals stirred, birds flew in bursts, shadows ran through the undergrowth, nature itself fleeing from something unseen. The alien woman pressed her hands to the ground, whispering fast in her tongue as if praying or calling or begging. Her silver eyes darted to Ethan, then to the sky, then back to Ethan, pleading without words. Ethan swallowed hard, his pulse fast, his body tense. He had no idea who she was, what she was, or why the night had brought her into his trap. But he understood one truth. Whatever hunted her would not care if a human stood in the way. And if he left her there, chained to the trap, she would be taken, and maybe worse. He made his choice. With one strong pull, he forced the trap apart. The rusted iron screeched. The metal bit his palm. Pain shot through his hand. But he kept pulling. The jaws of the trap opened. The alien woman gasped, her ankle free. Her glow flickered brighter, a faint light of relief. She stared at him, wide-eyed, still afraid, but also confused. Her lips parted. A word escaped. Soft and trembling, it sounded almost like, "Why?" Ethan leaned back, breathing hard, his hand bleeding from the metal, his voice steady. "Because you needed help." The alien woman stared at him, silence heavy between them, her silver eyes, full of questions but no answers. The hum above grew louder. Lights moved closer. The forest shook. The night was no longer safe, and in that silence, in that shared breath of fear and wonder, the story of human and alien truly began. The night was no longer still. The air shook with a low hum that grew stronger, echoing through the trees like a storm waiting to break. Ethan stood beside the alien woman, his chest rising and falling fast, his palm bleeding from the trap he had broken, yet his eyes stayed locked on the sky. Above the treetops, faint lights flickered, moving in strange patterns, not like planes, not like stars, but like hunters searching the ground. The alien woman whispered something in her language, her silver eyes wide, her body trembling, her glow flickering in fear. Ethan could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. They were coming. She looked at him, her expression filled with warning. She shook her head, pointing at the ground, then at him, her lips moving quickly. Her message was simple. She wanted him to leave, to run, to save himself before it was too late. But Ethan did not move. He stood firm, though his heart screamed at him to flee. His legs stayed rooted, his eyes steady on hers. "You think I'll leave you here?" he whispered, voice low, determined. "Not a chance." The alien woman's fear deepened, not because of him, but because she believed he would doom himself by staying. She shook her head again, her voice trembling as she spoke in her strange tongue, her tone desperate, urgent. Ethan stepped closer, shaking his head right back. "I don't care what's up there, I'm not leaving you." The words fell heavy in the air, and for the first time, her glowing eyes softened, confusion mixing with fear. The humming above grew louder. Beams of light shot down through the trees, sweeping across the ground like claws searching for prey. Ethan grabbed the lantern from the earth and quickly blew it out. Darkness swallowed them both, leaving only her faint glow to light their faces. He crouched low, motioning for her to do the same. She hesitated, then slowly mirrored him, her body moving with grace even in fear. For a moment they were only two shadows pressed against the roots of an ancient oak, breathing in unison, waiting, listening. The lights passed close, burning bright against the trees. Ethan held his breath, his hand brushing against hers. The alien woman flinched at the touch but did not pull away. Instead, her silver eyes darted to his face, her expression asking a question he could not hear. Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes locked on the search beams. He mouthed silently, "Stay quiet." Her breath caught. Her glow dimmed slightly, as if she could control it, as if she understood the danger of shining too bright. Minutes passed. Like hours, the hum faded slightly. The lights moved deeper into the forest, searching elsewhere. Ethan finally exhaled, his body loosening, but only a little. He knew they were not safe yet, only lucky. The alien woman looked at him again, her lips parted, a word escaped, soft and broken. It sounded like, "Why?" He turned to her, whispering back, "Because it was my choice." Her brows furrowed, her silver eyes narrowing as if the idea confused. Her choice for her was not freedom but survival, fear, obedience. Yet here stood a man, a stranger, who chose danger instead of safety, who chose to help instead of flee. She did not understand it, but she felt it. And for the first time since she had fallen into his trap, she no longer looked at him as a threat, but as something else, something unpredictable. The forest groaned with the sound of the hunters above. Faint vibrations shook the earth. Yet inside Ethan's chest a different sound grew louder, the beating of determination. He glanced at her ankle, the skin glowing faintly around the mark of the trap, not bleeding, not like human flesh, but bruised, weakened. "You can walk?" he whispered. She hesitated, then nodded slowly, her movements cautious. She stood with his help, her balance unsteady, but her spirit unbroken. They moved deeper into the forest, step by step, Ethan leading, the alien woman following, her silver glow faint against the towering shadows. Each step was heavy with risk, yet also heavy with a bond growing stronger, not of trust yet, but of survival, of shared danger. The hum behind them swelled again. The search not finished, the hunters persistent. The alien woman muttered something, low, her eyes narrowing at the sky. Her voice edged with bitterness, anger, not just fear. Ethan listened, though he could not understand, and he wondered, who were these hunters and why did they want her so badly? The thought burned in his mind, but another thought burned hotter. What if they found her? What would they do? What would they do to him? Ethan clenched his jaw. His choice was already made, no turning back. He whispered to her as they walked, "You're not alone anymore." The alien woman turned her head, her silver eyes locking onto his, her expression unreadable, yet her glow brightened faintly, as if in answer. The forest swallowed their footsteps, the sky above lit with searching beams, and for the first time, Ethan felt the weight of something larger than himself. This was not just survival, not just chance, it was destiny pulling him into a storm he could not escape. And though the alien woman still feared him, still doubted him, she followed. Because in the darkness of Earth he had made a choice no one else would have made. And that choice would change everything. The forest was no longer silent. The night itself seemed alive with sound. The deep hum of engines rolled across the sky, shaking leaves and branches, making the ground tremble. Ethan and the alien woman moved quickly, her ankle weak but her steps guided by a steady hand, their breath heavy, hearts beating faster with every distant roar above them. The silver-eyed woman glanced at the clouds again and again, her fear sharp, her glow flickering with every new vibration. She whispered in her strange language, her tone full of warning, her words carrying urgency even though Ethan could not understand them. But he understood her fear, and he knew it was not of him, but of whatever hunted her. Ethan led her deeper into the trees, away from the open spaces where the search beams cut through the dark like knives. He crouched behind a fallen log, pulling her down beside him, his finger pressed to his lips, a signal for silence. The alien woman nodded, pressing herself low, her glowing eyes wide, her breaths sharp but quiet. Moments later, the forest lit up. A bright white beam swept across the clearing ahead, the light powerful, unnatural, bending shadows into long, twisted shapes. Ethan's heart froze. He pressed himself flat, holding his breath. The beam lingered on the trap he had broken, the metal still glinting faintly, and then it moved on, searching, scanning, hunting. The woman's eyes shimmered brighter as she whispered something close to his ear, her voice low but urgent. He shook his head, whispering back, "I don't understand." Her hand trembled. She drew shapes in the dirt with her finger. Circles and arrows, a crude map. She pointed upward, then to herself, then to him. Ethan watched carefully, and slowly it made sense. She was telling him she had escaped, and now they wanted her back. Ethan's jaw tightened, his chest heavy with realization. Whoever they were not searching out of kindness, not to rescue her, but to capture her. Her glow dimmed, her shoulders slumped as if the truth was too heavy. And then she looked at him, her silver eyes full of warning. She pressed her hand against her chest, then to the ground, and then to him, her meaning simple. If they find me, they will destroy everything, including you. The forest trembled again as a new sound joined the hum. A sharp crack like thunder, but without lightning. Ethan flinched. The alien woman gasped. Above the treetops, a dark shape moved, sleek, silent, like a predator made of steel and shadow. It was not an aircraft he recognized, not a plane, not a helicopter, but something faster, something sharper, its light scanning with cold precision. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run, but he stayed, his hand brushing the ground, steadying himself. He turned to her, his voice a whisper. If they want you this badly, then I can't let them. Have you? Her eyes widened at his words, confusion and disbelief flickering across her face as though no one had ever said such a thing to her before. The dark shape above shifted, beams cutting across the trees, moving closer. The woman pressed her hand to Ethan's arm, her touch light but urgent. She shook her head, her lips forming words he did not know, yet the meaning was clear. Run. Save yourself. Ethan met her gaze, his jaw set, his voice quiet but strong. Not without you. Her glow brightened faintly at his words, like a star hidden in fog suddenly shining clearer. But her fear remained. The hum grew louder, branches rattled, leaves shook, and suddenly a blast of light struck the ground not far from them. The earth shook, dirt lifted into the air, trees cracked. The hunters were no longer searching, they were striking. Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her with him, moving quickly through the shadows. Her steps were clumsy at first, her injured ankle slowing her, but Ethan guided her, pushing her forward, keeping her close. The beams chased them, sweeping through the forest, cutting through trees, searching. With relentless precision, the alien woman stumbled. Ethan caught her, pulling her close, his chest rising fast. She whispered again, her voice low, almost broken. No. Safe. Nowhere. Her words broken, fragments of English slipping through. Ethan's eyes narrowed, his determination hardening. Then we make safe, he whispered, pulling her onward. They reached a small ridge, rocks rising above. The forest floor, Ethan pulled her behind them, pressing their bodies into the stone. The beams of light passed just beyond, close enough that the heat burned against their skin. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, forcing himself calm, forcing his fear down. The alien woman looked at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with something new, not just fear, but a trace of wonder. She studied him as though he was more alien to her than she was to him, a man who chose danger instead of safety, a man who refused to leave her behind. She whispered something soft, almost like a name, almost like gratitude. Above them, the hunters circled again, the forest alive with their search, their power, their intent. Ethan tightened his grip on the ground, his mind racing. He had no weapon, no plan, nothing but his will and the strange bond growing between them. But deep inside he felt it. Humans had always been underestimated, seen as fragile, weak, small. And yet, here in the heart of the forest, facing machines from the stars, one human stood his ground. The alien woman's glow brightened faintly as she leaned closer, whispering, "They will not stop." Ethan's voice hardened, steady as stone. "Neither will I." And with those words, the night changed. The hunters above were not the only danger now. The greatest danger was the choice Ethan had made, a choice that would draw him deeper into a war he did not understand, a choice that made him more than just a hunter in the woods, a choice that would show the galaxy what it meant to be human. The ridge gave them a moment of shelter. The hunters circled above, their lights sweeping across the forest. But for now they had not found the two figures pressed close against the stone. Ethan's chest rose and fell in quick rhythm, his body tense, his hand still gripping the earth, while beside him, the alien woman's silver eyes glimmered in the dark, her glow faint but steady. They were strangers, enemies by fate, yet bound together by danger. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of engines above, and the woman finally turned to him. her lips parting, words in her language slipping out softly. Ethan shook his head, whispering back, "I don't understand." His voice calm but tired, her brows furrowed. She pressed her hand lightly to her chest, then tapped the ground, then touched his arm, the same strange gesture as before. This time, Ethan understood a little more. She was trying to tell him who she was, not just what hunted her, but what she carried inside. Her silver eyes held his, and then she whispered again. But this time, a sound like a name formed, fragile, broken, but clear enough. "Lyra," she said, her voice soft, almost musical. Ethan repeated the word under his breath. "Lyra," testing it on his tongue, the name of the alien woman he had freed. For the first time, she did not flinch at his voice. Instead, her eyes softened, her glow brightening faintly, as though giving him a piece of trust. They sat in the shadow of the ridge, their breaths slowing, their bodies still, and Ethan felt the weight of her presence more than the weight of the hunters above. Her glow lit the sharp edges of his face. Her gaze traced every line of him, studying, searching. And finally she spoke again. Her voice, low, her English broken but real. "Why, help me." Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight, his voice steady. "Because you needed me." Lyra tilted her head, her silver eyes narrowing in confusion. Her people did not know this kind of choice, this kind of selfless act. For her, survival had always been fear, obedience, escape, not kindness freely given, not protection without demand. She pressed her hand to her chest again, her glow pulsing softly. "Human. Strange," she whispered, the word almost like a question, almost like wonder. Ethan gave a small, dry laugh under his breath, shaking his head. "You're the alien and I'm the strange one?" Lyra blinked, her silver eyes wide, and for a brief moment the fear between them cracked, replaced by something softer, something fragile, almost like trust. The hum above grew louder again, snapping the moment. Beams of light cut across the trees, the hunters still circling, still searching. Lyra's glow dimmed, her shoulders tensed. She pressed her hand to Ethan's arm, her voice urgent. "No safe. They find... always." Ethan looked at her firmly. "Then we don't let them." They moved again, deeper into the forest, their bodies shadows among shadows. Ethan leading, Lyra close behind, her ankle weak but her will strong. They reached, a hollow between trees, roots twisting like walls. And there Ethan stopped, pressing his back against the bark, listening. Lyra crouched beside him, her silver eyes scanning, her glow faint but alive. Ethan glanced at her ankle, the mark from the trap still visible. He pulled a strip of cloth from his jacket and carefully tied it around her injury. She flinched at his touch, then stilled, her eyes locked on his hands, his movements careful, gentle, human. When he finished, he leaned back, his breath steady. "Better?" he whispered. Lyra hesitated, then nodded slowly, a faint glow pulsing in her skin like a heartbeat. In that quiet hollow, a fragile bond grew, not built on words but on actions. Lyra leaned closer, her voice low, broken, English struggling out. "Humans. Fear. But you, choose." Ethan met her gaze, his own steady. "Fear doesn't decide for me," he whispered back. Her silver eyes widened, her glow flickering brighter, as if his words carried a power she had never known. The hum of the hunters still echoed, above, but in that moment the forest around them seemed to fade. Lyra reached out slowly, placing her hand against his chest, feeling the rapid thump of his heartbeat. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Strong, not weapon, heart." Ethan's breath caught. He stared at her, his voice quiet. "That's what makes us human." She pulled her hand back, her eyes shining, her glow brighter now, not from fear, but from something new, something fragile, trust. For the first time, Lyra no longer looked at him as a threat but as an ally, maybe even more. The bond between them was unspoken, fragile, but it was real, and it grew stronger with every moment they survived together. Above them, the hunters circled again, their power heavy, their search endless. But in the shadow of the trees, in the silence of the earth, one human and one alien sat side by side, bound not by chains, but by choice. Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "Maybe human. Hope." Ethan turned his head, his voice firm. "Maybe." The night was still full of danger. The hunters had not given up. Their beams cut through the forest like blades. But for the first time, Ethan and Lyra were no longer just prey hiding. In the dark, they were two souls bound by a bond stronger than fear, and that bond would carry them into the storm that was still to come. The night had no mercy. The hunters above pressed closer, their engines growling like beasts circling prey. Beams of white light tore through the trees, cutting across branches, burning the darkness into patches of day. Ethan and Lyra ran, their steps quick but uneven, his boots heavy on the ground, her movements lighter but slowed by her injured ankle. Every sound they made felt too loud. Every breath too sharp. The forest itself seemed to betray them, carrying their noise into the night. Lyra's glow pulsed faintly, her silver eyes darting behind them. She whispered in her broken English, "They near." Ethan glanced back, his jaw tight. He could already see the beam shifting closer, moving with purpose, no longer searching blindly. They had a trail. His chest tightened, but he forced his voice steady. "We keep moving." They ducked, under branches, slipped past thick roots, Ethan guiding her, his hand gripping hers firmly, pulling her forward when her ankle slowed her. Behind them, the hum grew louder, the hunters descending lower, the sound of metal against air, sharp and heavy. Ethan's mind raced. They could not outrun machines, but maybe they could outsmart them. He pulled her into a narrow path, leading toward the river he knew cut through the woods. Water would mask their trail, hide their heat. Lyra stumbled, nearly falling, but Ethan caught her, holding her upright, his breath hard. "Almost there," he whispered. Her silver eyes searched his face, filled with both fear and a strange trust. She nodded weakly, letting him lead. The trees parted. The river shimmered in the moonlight, rushing and wild. Ethan dragged her to the edge, the cold spray hitting, his face the sound of water roaring louder than the engines above. He turned to her quickly, pointing. "We follow the river." Lyra's eyes widened, fear flashing. "No. They see?" she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "Not if we're smart." He stepped into the water, pulling her with him, the cold biting through his boots and clothes. They moved along the edge, half walking, half stumbling. The river, carrying away their sound, their heat, their presence. Above, beams swept back and forth, bright and merciless. One beam struck the river, sliding across the surface like a blade of fire. Ethan froze, pulling Lyra low, their bodies pressed against wet stones, water soaking their skin. The beam lingered, then moved on, the hunters searching elsewhere. Ethan exhaled, his body shaking, his hand still gripping hers tightly. Lyra's glow flickered faintly, dimmer now, exhaustion heavy on her, her silver eyes half-lidded but still fixed on him. She whispered weakly, "You risk life for me." Ethan's jaw tightened, his voice firm. "That's what humans do." They pushed onward, following the river deeper into the forest, but the hunters did not give up. Their machines circled wider, closing in again. Suddenly, a sharp burst of energy split the night. The ground shook, trees cracked, a beam of fire struck near them, the blast throwing dirt and water high into the air. Ethan shielded Lyra with his body, his arms wrapping around her as debris rained down, his back taking the hit of small stones. She gasped, looking up at him, her voice breaking. "Why? You protect." Ethan's voice came out rough. "Because I can." The hunters were closing in, too close, their machines slicing through the forest like blades of light and steel. Ethan knew they could not keep running. Not forever. Not. Like this, his survival instinct screamed one truth. They needed a distraction, something that would draw the hunters away, even if only for a little while. He stopped suddenly, pulling Lyra close, his eyes steady on hers. You keep moving. Follow the river, stay low. Lyra shook her head, her silver eyes wide, panic rising. No, not leave. Ethan forced a small smile, though his chest was heavy. I'll catch up, but first I need to slow them down. Her glow brightened, her voice urgent, broken. They kill. You. Ethan's grip tightened on her shoulders, his eyes firm. Then they'll have to try. She shook her head violently, her hands gripping his arms, her fear stronger than before, not of the hunters, but of losing him. Ethan leaned closer, whispering, Trust me, Lyra. You're not alone, not anymore, but if we both stay, we both die, and then it's over. Her breath caught. Her glow flickered uncertainly, her silver eyes shimmering with pain. Finally, she whispered, her voice shaking. Promise. Come back. Ethan nodded once, strong and steady. I promise. He gently pushed her toward the riverbank, his eyes never leaving hers until the forest swallowed her shape. Then he turned back, his chest rising, his jaw tight, his mind sharp. He moved quickly, setting small traps with branches, stones, and fire from his lantern, the same tricks he once used for hunting deer, now used against machines from the stars. The hunters' beams cut through the trees, their hum louder, their shadows growing. Closer. Ethan stood tall behind the ridge of rocks, his lantern flame glowing faintly, his heart pounding. He was only a man, only human, but that was enough. His eyes narrowed as the beams drew closer, his voice low but strong. Come and get me. The night roared with engines, the forest shook with light, and Ethan faced the storm. One man against the hunters of the stars, one sacrifice against impossible odds. And deep in the shadows, Lyra pressed her hand to her chest, her silver eyes shining with something new. Not just fear, not just hope, but the beginning of faith. Faith in a human who had chosen to stand. The forest shook with thunder not born from clouds. The hunters circled above, beams of white fire striking the ground. Tearing through trees and stone, Ethan stood his ground, his lantern flame flickering in the wind, his traps scattered around him. Small tricks of rope and branch, weak against machines, yet still his only weapons. His heart pounded, his body, heavy with fear, but his eyes burned with something stronger, the human will to fight. The first machine descended lower, a sleek shadow against the sky, its lights cutting across the ridge where Ethan stood. He grabbed a stone and hurled it at one of the traps he had set. The rope snapped, a branch swung, striking the ground, sparks from the lantern oil he had poured lit into sudden fire. The forest flared with smoke. The machine hesitated, its lights sweeping wildly. Ethan used the moment to move, his steps quick, his body pressed low, a hunter not of beasts, but of giants. More beams cut through the smoke, energy blasts scorched the earth. Dirt and ash rained down. Ethan dove behind a fallen tree, his lungs burning, his hand pressed against the bark, his blood from the trap wound sticky against his skin. The machines moved closer, circling, their search narrowing on him, and Ethan knew, every step he took, every breath he made was only to give Lyra more time. Farther down the river, Lyra moved quickly, her silver glow faint but alive, her injured ankle slowing her, yet her will pushing her forward. Her silver eyes filled with tears. She whispered Ethan's name, though he had never told it, his voice echoing in her mind, his promise. I'll come back. But fear twisted inside her. Not fear of capture, not fear of death, but fear of losing the one human who had chosen her over safety. She stumbled, pressing her hand to her chest, her glow flickering weakly. Her people had taught her fear, had taught her obedience, had taught her survival. But Ethan had taught her something new, something alien to her but human to him. The choice to risk for another, the courage to protect. And with that thought, Lyra turned back. Her silver eyes, fierce, her steps carrying her toward the storm she had tried to escape. Back at the ridge, Ethan's traps failed one by one. The machines too strong, too advanced, branches burned, stones shattered, ropes snapped. But still he fought, still he moved, Still he resisted. One man against the hunters of the stars. His. Voice low, a whisper to himself, "Not today." A blast of energy struck near him, throwing him back. Pain shot through his side. His breath ragged, his vision blurred. He forced himself to stand, his body screaming, his legs unsteady. The machine descended lower, its lights burning bright, its shadow massive, its intent clear. End the human. Ethan gritted his teeth, his hands empty now. No traps left, no tricks left, only his will. And then, the forest lit with another light. Brighter, sharper, silver and alive. Lyra stood behind him, her glow no longer faint but blazing like a star, her silver eyes fierce, her voice strong. She spoke in her language, words sharp and powerful, carrying across the trees. The machine froze, its lights flickering, its hum stuttering. Ethan turned, his eyes wide. "Lyra," he whispered. Her glow burned brighter, energy pulsing through, her skin, her body trembling as if channeling something greater than herself. She stepped forward, placing herself between Ethan and the machine, her voice rising again. The air shook, the ground trembled, the machine's lights faltered. Its hum cracked, and with a burst of silver light it fell back into the sky, retreating into the dark. Ethan stared, breathless, his body weak, but his spirit alive. Lyra turned to him, her glow dimming slowly, exhaustion heavy, her silver eyes soft now, filled with something more than fear. More than survival, she whispered in broken English. "You protect me, I protect you." Ethan gave a tired laugh, shaking his head. "Fair enough." But the night was not done. More lights flickered above, more machines circling. And then, another sound joined the chaos. A deeper hum, stronger, steadier. Not of hunters, but of something larger. The sky split with silver beams. Not of search, but of defense. From the clouds descended another ship, larger, brighter, its light pure. Lyra's eyes widened, tears filling them, her voice soft, trembling. "My people." The ship descended slowly, its beams pushing back the hunters, its engines roaring like thunder. The machines fled, vanishing into the dark, leaving only silence and the glow of the new arrival. Lyra stumbled, her body weak. Ethan caught her, holding her steady. She looked up at him, her voice breaking. "Safe, now." The silver ship landed softly, its light washing the forest in brilliance. Figures stepped out, tall and glowing like Lyra, their eyes silver, their clothes shining. They looked at Ethan with suspicion, their gaze sharp. But Lyra stepped forward weakly, her hand in his, her voice strong though her body trembled. "He saved me, he protect human. Not enemy." The silver figures paused, their eyes narrowing, their silence heavy. Then one stepped closer, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder, whispering words Ethan could not understand. Lyra nodded slowly, then turned back to Ethan, her eyes shimmering with tears, her voice soft. "I must go." Ethan's chest tightened, his voice rough. "I know." She squeezed his hand, her glow warm against his skin. "Promise. Not forget." Ethan smiled faintly, his voice low. "Never." She stepped back, her silver glow merging with the light of her people, her figure fading into the brilliance. Before she vanished into the ship, she turned one last time. Her silver, eyes locking on his, her voice carrying strong and clear. "Humans. Hope." The ship lifted, rising into the sky, its light fading, the forest falling silent once more. Ethan stood alone, his body broken, his spirit heavy, but his heart alive. He looked at the stars, his voice a whisper to the night. This is only the beginning. And high above, unseen by him, the galaxy had already taken notice.